Ciao a tutti, benvenuti a questa puntata speciale di Motorhome. Il perché è molto semplice. Questa puntata è completamente in inglese. Quindi per chi purtroppo non sapesse l'inglese dovete ancora aspettare un paio di settimane dove rilascerò la puntata in italiano, ovvero sia questa intervista alla lead commentator del mondiale rally, Becs Williams. Essendo lei gallese, ovviamente la puntata, l'intervista l'ho fatta in inglese. Quindi, di cosa ne ho parlato con Bex? Tante cose. Lei, oltre ad essere appunto, come ho detto prima, la lead commentator per il mondiale rally, è anche la host del podcast Backstories, sempre della VRC. Quindi abbiamo parlato un po' del podcast, abbiamo parlato di come la sua carriera si è evoluta all'interno del mondiale rally, abbiamo parlato di parolacce e abbiamo parlato anche di gaming. Quindi tante cose in quest'ora di dialogo, di quest'ora di intervista. Questa è l'intervista originale senza alcun tipo di tagli. Quindi c'è tutto. Perciò se capiste in inglese, preparatevi, mettetevi comodi perché sarà una puntata interessante. So, here I am with Becs Williams. How are you doing, Bex?
I am doing really good. It's my, I like to say, off season, although not really off season, but it's my time without travel at the moment. It's December, it's winter, and I'm loving life at the moment.
That's great to hear. That's great to hear. Yeah, we're in the off season. Like, how does it feel? Like it's been a globetrotting journey throughout this whole year.
It's been a lot of travel this year with WRC and ERC as well. And I throw in some other rallies because I love it so much. So I do other little bits and pieces. And you get to the end of November, you get to the final rally of the season. And I can't really explain what the feeling is like, but I think it's kind of universal for all of us that you're getting on the final flight and you're like, this is the last flight of the year for work essentially. And you're like, you're so relieved that the travel is done, but also disappointed that it's been the last rally and competition is done and all the stories are done. Well, I say all the stories are done for the year. Lots of stories always come out in December, but for the most part, the competition is done and there's a little bit of joy of going home to just chill out and relax, but also disappointment that there is no rally until Monte Carlo. But that comes around quick enough.
Yeah, of course, the off-season throwing curveballs here and there with the driver market. So
yeah, always. And I love that. And I think everyone loves that because if we all went into December and you heard nothing about the WRC and driver markets, how dull and boring it would be. So I'm glad we still have a few pieces of the puzzle to put in. And there's other bits and pieces of news coming out as well as the driver market stuff, things for next year, potential changes for next year. So there's a lot to keep your eye on in December.
Definitely, for sure. So let's get into the thick of it, shall we? So in your podcast, of course, for those who don't know, of course, Becs Williams is the lead commentator for the World Rally Championship. So your voice is getting heard by hundreds of thousands or probably even millions of people across the world.
Shh, don't say the number. Think of the number. If I think of the number, I can't speak anymore.
But she's also the host of the WRC Backstories podcast, which I do love. Like, tons of interesting stuff. It's amazing, what you guys managed to pull off. And still on it after 4 years? Was it 3 years? 4 years?
I think we started in 2020. And we started, strangely enough, there's a bit of a funny story to it because we came up with the idea. We wanted a podcast that was that people could just pick up at any time, and it wasn't, it was timeless then. So if you wanted to find out the story about someone, it's like it's on the shelf like a book. You just go, oh right, I'll have a listen to how they got to where they were. So we decided to do this backstories, look into the life of the drivers. But at first, it was only meant to be 30 minutes maximum. And it wasn't really a deep delve into their lives. It was more a, can you cook? What do you do when you're at home? That kind of backstory rather than a backstory to their lives. And we started recording it at Rally Mexico 2020. So that was COVID year, and that was the event that was shortened due to COVID. So the event ended on the Saturday night, and I'd recorded, I think, 4 episodes on the Wednesday with Oit Tanak, Danny Sordo, Thierry Neuville, Gus Greensmith, all back to back, sat on a sofa. And I remember I got home and, none of us knew around the world what the hell was happening with COVID. And, certainly for us traveling and doing rallying, all of that had just stopped.
Yeah, for sure.
So we were unsure as to when it would all start again. And of course, the powers that be with us and our online team were like, we need content. We need to keep things going. So, the podcast was launched. But we got through the first 4 episodes very, very quickly because they were only short. And then, COVID was starting to drag on. Events were being cancelled. And I started to record some at home. And they then became the longer form backstory. So, I think the longest we've done is, I think it was Paul Nagel was 2 hours 15. He beat the record. And the first thing he said to me when we finished recording, literally the first thing he said to me was, have I beaten the record? Which I have recorded. But it became this long, more meandering, discussion of deeper into life, your background, schooling, parents, family, all of that. And the amount of little gold nuggets that you get from that, from people's everyday life, forget about the competition. It's actually, that's the good stuff. For me, anyway, that's what I enjoy hearing is the, Malcolm Wilson telling me that he used to, bunk off school, as in leave lessons from school to go and work in a garage because, that's what he loved doing. And, he was a mechanic and he's like, this is Malcolm Wilson. What we're talking about here. And he's telling me he played truant as a child because he loved cars so much. It's that kind of thing we've really loved about backstories. There haven't been so many additions this year. There's been a few reasons behind that. But next year it will be full flow again and back to the normal output.
That's great to hear. So, as you know, like your intro and the first question that you ask to your guests. So now it's your turn. It's your turn now.
Oh man.
Becs Williams, describe yourself in 3 words.
In 3 words. Happy. Oh man, this is difficult now. I know when people go, oh, I understand. Yeah, okay. Happy is definitely a big one because I'm a happy soul. I always try and find the happiness in any kind of situation and joy. So happy, driven, third one. Oh my goodness, this is so hard. Happy, driven, and exuberant because I am a bit sometimes over exuberant. That's my character. I can be a little bit too much maybe in a room full of people, but that's just the way I am. I love life. I love being alive. I'm grateful where I am in life, and I can't help but let that come through. It's a rare day that I'm miserable. It does happen, but it doesn't happen that often because I just genuinely just love every day.
That's awesome. Like, of course, like everyone has its own days where like those no days, those off days. But
oh yeah, I mean, and when I have an off day, I really have an off day as well. Because it's so unusual, and I really feel it, that I'm like, oh, I'm miserable, I'm just unhappy, why? And I'm questioning everything. I think a lot of people can be overthinkers, and I'm definitely guilty of that. And the off season is bad for that because you're not as busy, and you sit and you think, am I where I want to be in my life? And I'm like, why am I asking myself this question? Because I don't believe in that question. You just take every day and go with every day. I'm certainly not a planner or anything like that in terms of life, because it changes on you very, very fast. And I have a lot of experience of that. So my kind of ethos in life is to just live every day. But in the off season, because you're sat at home and you're looking at other people on Instagram going, oh, they're doing that. Oh, that's amazing. Why am I doing that? And you're like, no, stop it. Stop it. Absolutely. Comparison is just the thief of joy. So I try not to do that, but I'm human. So I will do that on occasion. And that's what then will bring my mood down. But normally I'm pretty happy.
Yeah. I can hear it also, like, during your broadcast. It's very rare that I can hear you, like, on the down. That's very good. That's very good. So tell us, how was young Becs back in the day?
Oh, young Becs. What do you want to know? Because I don't know where to start, really.
Like, school time. Like, I heard, if I remember correctly, you were talking with Jarmo Lehtinen, and you said that you liked school.
I did love school. I really enjoyed it. But at the same time, when I was getting kind of into my teenage years, I was still kind of desperate for school to end so I could get out in the world and get on with my life. At some points, it felt like it was like, oh my God, I got another year of doing this, and I just want to get out there and get on with it. I think I'm a bit of an old soul in that, I felt like I'd already done this. And so I don't know whether I'm, on my second or third or fourth life. Who knows if you believe in reincarnation? I don't know. But I kind of felt in my teenage years that I just wanted to kind of go. But I did enjoy school. I loved English. Was my English literature language was my strongest subject, and drama.
Right.
Loved those, and art. So I was a very creative child. Loved being on the stage. But at the same time, loved being on the stage and acting, but also was quite shy. So I don't know how you couple those together. I wasn't a in-your-face confident child, not at all. So it was always a surprise to teachers when I would get on a stage and be different and be like, oh, she's come out of her shell or whatever, because I kept myself to myself. But yeah, school was good. I wouldn't say I was exceptional in school. I was very strong in English language, like I mentioned, and drama and art. They were my A grade subjects. Maths was my absolute nemesis of a subject. I just couldn't grasp it. I can add up, I can subtract, I can multiply, I can times, but talk to me about algebra and all of that, and it's just like, and I could sit there and like A plus B equals C, and or what, and fractions, and oh God, just to think of it now freaks me out. Just the lessons in maths where I'd be staring at the teacher like completely empty, because it was going in this ear and out the other, and she'd look to me because I was so strong in other subjects, and she would always think that I was this intelligent being and put me on the spot, and then I would fail miserably in front of everyone. Oh, horrendous. Yeah, maths. And still to this day, it freaks me out. And obviously I have to do a lot of calculations with timings now, which is, that's fine, because that's simple addition, subtraction. That's easy. But anything else, anything that involves algebra, why that exists, I don't know. Who invented it, I don't know, and I don't care. I have never used it or have cause to use it.
Yeah.
Oh, God, let's move on from algebra.
Okay, yeah. I will move on, and we will probably get into a more comfortable topic, like routing, for example.
Yes.
Like, do you remember the first time that you've seen rallying? Was it like, did you go to an event? Was it on BBC Grandstand?
No, it was actually an event. My first rally was when I was very young. I was only 4. And it was what was Wales Rally GB, the RAC Rally of Great Britain. And my brothers took me. I have two older brothers. They took me, and I've mentioned this before in some interviews. I don't remember a huge amount about it, other than lights and sound. Tell me drivers' names. No, I mean that was the year Ari Vatanen won, but that I was 4, so I didn't care about that. All I cared about was a lovely pair of Wellington boots that I was wearing in the mud, and hearing the car sounds and seeing the lights. And that was my first exposure to rallying. And as a family, we didn't have any vehicles. No one drove a car in my family. So I had two older brothers, obviously my parents, no one drove. So because of that, I think then that propelled me to have a big interest in cars, because we didn't have one. And we did eventually have a car which was sat outside the house for my brother, which my grandfather had given him. And he never learned to drive, which always amazed me, because he was like 10 years older than me. So I can't even remember what it was. I think it was an Austin something, was sat there for so many years and then eventually scrapped because it just kind of rotted away. And I would sit in it and just play with the gear stick and, play with the wheel. And I was always fascinated by cars and how they work, because I didn't understand it. I'd get into a friend's car and her father, let's say, would be driving and he'd be changing gear. And I'd be like, I don't understand. What's the gear do? How does he know when to move it? How does he know when to move the stick? None of it made sense. So I then looked into it myself, because that's actually a word I should have used to describe myself, is inquisitive. Because if I have something in my head, I have to then know how it works, or who this person is, where they come from. I'm very, very inquisitive. So I then just looked myself at mechanical engineering, basically, when I was very, very young, to understand cars. And my brothers were still kind of looking at rally, and yes, grandstand, seeing rallying on the BBC, just straight into your homes on a weekend was amazing. And of course, you grow up in Wales surrounded by rallying, really. So it's something that's easily accessible here, which is fantastic. But it is never something that I thought I would work in. It was never I loved it and I loved to watch it. But, because it felt so distant from me, in that we weren't a rallying family, we didn't even have a car, then it didn't seem like something I could ever work in. And no females were represented in journalism back in that day. It was a male-dominated sport, apart from Michelle Mouton and Fabrizia Pons, Louise Aiken Walker-Smith. You didn't see anyone else. Yeah. And that, I think, was a little... Because of that, because you didn't see representation, you didn't put yourself in that picture back then. It was only later on that I discovered my love of journalism and live sport. And that started really with rugby, which is a big sport here. It is our national sport. And I started working on rugby, reporting on rugby, and I found a sports agency in Cardiff that worked on many, many sports. So they worked on rugby, circuit racing, so British touring cars. They did a little bit of Formula One. They did the Volvo Ocean Race, golf, tennis, and rallying. And my first kind of forage into motorsport broadcasting was actually circuit racing and British touring cars. So I worked on small support categories, Formula Ford, so single-seater stuff. And the Ford Fiesta Z-Tech Championship, which actually had a much longer name than that, because there was another sponsor thrown in, but I can't remember what it was now. So we had these incredible races that I would report on. But for me, I love circuit racing. I love to watch it. And working on it was great for a couple of years, but it definitely in no way gave me any way, shape or form the buzz that rallying gave me when I started working in it. And my first ever event was Network Q Rally of Great Britain, which is, what has been Great British Rally in WRC for many years. And that was 1999. And
Did you join
Go on.
in as part of the WRC broadcast crew, or were you part of the
No,
Cardiff agency?
we were completely separate. So it was the Cardiff agency, and we were providing radio reports for BBC and independent news stations across the country. So basically, you would do like a little 30-second news report into their live sports news on the top of the hour and on the half hour. So, you would then tailor your broadcast to whichever station it was. It could be Richard Burns's local BBC station that you would talk about Richard, or it could be Bob Jones's local radio station up in the Northeast, and you would tailor it. So you would discuss whoever was local. So it was a lot of preparation beforehand, because we did, it's changed now, but we did have a lot of local radio broadcasters, which we would provide services for. So you would be doing every hour so many reports, especially on a Saturday afternoon, into live sports shows. And that was fun. It was really busy because you had to keep an eye. And the only thing you had back then was a timing screen.
Yeah.
And maybe some information that was filtering in from out in the stages, but nowhere near the amount of information you have
There
now.
was no rally.tv.
No, absolutely not. I mean, there wasn't even a tracking map when I started.
All right.
It was a timing screen. That was it. Actually, I don't know if we had digital split points back then. I think it was just an overall time that would come in, and you had to decipher if they'd lost 2 minutes, it's potentially a puncture. If they've lost 10 to 20 seconds, maybe they've had a spin, that kind of thing you'd be working out in your head until you actually heard, because people being at stage ends back then reporting in, they would be the stage end info flash crews. And in Wales, certainly it was very difficult to get any information out. I mean, this was the early days really of mobile phones still in 99. You didn't have masts everywhere, so to find signal to actually ring in your reports was very difficult. So we didn't hear anything that what was happening out on stages until they came back to service. So it was frantic, but I really enjoyed that time. And we did these radio reports, so 99, 2000, 2001. And then the guy that I worked for, Greg Strange, who had a huge history in rallying broadcasting, he decided that, the world needed to be able to hear rallying as it happened live. And many rallies at the time, this idea it was innovative, but it had been done before, in the sense that many rallies had their own radio station.
Yeah.
So let's take Rally Finland, for example. It was the lead broadcaster, YLE, in Finland, who do the rally radio broadcast. I mean, that's
Yle,
exactly. That's like the BBC doing it here.
Yeah.
That's an insane amount of resource. And he was proposing that we did that on every single rally of the year, a traveling radio station, which broadcast live. And I remember him saying to me, we need someone to, anchor this and host it and talk basically for 10 hours a day. And I was like, bloody hell, who on earth are you going to find to do that? He was like, well, you, actually. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry, what? I was like, I can't do that. I can't talk for 10 hours a day on just a timing screen and, not much else going on. But actually, we did it. There was myself at the start. 2002 Rally Monte Carlo was the first ever rally radio, World Rally Radio, as it was called. There was myself, Sam Lloyd, a good friend, female journalist also, who worked for the company, and she'd been traveling with the WRC for about 3 years on every event for BBC 5 Live. So she was co-hosting with me, and we had a technical guy, Chris Rawes, who still works very heavily in rallying, and one other presenter. So there were 3 presenters at the time, and we all kind of shared roles. And then it would dwindle down because budget started quite high at the beginning and then disappeared quite rapidly.
Yeah.
So, and as did the people who were working on it. But it was a baptism of fire doing Rally Monte Carlo live for 4 days, with that many people trying to put on a live broadcast. but it was fun. I look back at it now and I just think it was crazy. It was chaos, but it was a lot of fun.
I can imagine.
Mm.
It's kind of like, I would say, you're kind of like setting the trails for what has become rallying broadcasting as of right now.
Yeah.
Like right now we have like GPS data, we have live camera crews, the helicopter drones that can keep the action, going on. And it's incredible to see like how the evolution of broadcasting when it comes to rallying has gone. Because if you think about it, like in circuit racing, like in Formula One, like there has been an evolution behind the scenes, but like generally, like the broadcasting style and the I would say, the style and the format has been the same, honestly, most of the time. Like since the 90s, since when they started to broadcast Formula One on live TV.
Yeah.
So
I mean, with respect to everyone who does a live broadcast, it is very difficult to change it up sometimes.
Yeah.
Especially, you have a set for, and with Formula One, they're always at a circuit. They're always in one place. But I know exactly where you're coming from and what you mean by that. Totally. I think there's lots of questions right now and have been all year about, the format that we have and moving that along. And, we only began WRC All Live in 2018. It's not that old, but still it is at the same time. I think, wow, that's actually, it's 5 years old this year. And we've gone through a pandemic with it. And gosh, I have to say, going through the pandemic with trying to do that broadcast was difficult because we were restricted on events with how close we could get to people. Certain members of our team we didn't see for the whole weekend because the service park was split. You had people in what was called high density areas, which was the service park, who could enter the service park, and you had low density people who were out on the stages, and they could not mix during the event.
Yeah, kind of like the paddock bubble that they had in F1, like
during exactly like that. So for our stage end reporters, we did see them, we heard them on the weekend, but we never saw them. Same for our our camera crews. We'd have this kind of testing procedure. To be high density, you had to have all these tests. And sometimes the camera crews would have these tests and they remained in the service park until, let's say, the Thursday, and then they left for the whole weekend. But they couldn't, once you'd left the service park, you couldn't come back in.
All right.
That was it. So, once you're out of the bubble, you were out of the bubble. And that was nearly 2 years of that, which I would say that was one of the biggest challenges, definitely, so far, is actually putting on a live show with everyone wearing masks.
Yeah.
Interviewing drivers in masks. And the worst one for us was a brilliant rally, which I'd love to see come back, whether it's in WRC or ERC, the Arctic Rally.
I would love that too.
Yeah, did you like watching it? It was so good to be there. And I know it was a shortened event because of the times that we were in. We only had, I think, 10 or 11 stages. But oh my goodness, just being in, near the North Pole, and it was fabulous. However, we had to wear masks outside, which you'd think, okay, well, that's extra warmth.
Yeah,
but no,
that
because you're
like minus 20 something. Yeah.
Because you're talking, the masks are getting wet and then they're freezing on your face. So yeah, that was an interesting one, but I would love to go back there. That was an amazing event.
Yeah, I would love to see Arctic Rally back, either like in the WRC or ERC calendar, as well as Rally Monza. That would be like another great addition.
Yeah, Rally Monza. I think it's split opinion for many people, but I have to admit I really loved it. And we always had tricky weather conditions there.
Yeah.
I think was it the first? Yeah, it was the first year we were there. It snowed.
Can happen, yeah. Can happen.
Yeah, and then obviously the rain as well. It's that kind of year. We were there in December time. But I loved the mountain stages. I thought they were fantastic. Obviously, we utilised the track and everything quite a lot because of the time as well. They had to be pretty inventive and use what they could. But I really enjoyed Rally Monza.
Yeah, those are like the highlights of 2020 for me as well. Even though like I properly started to get back into rallying last year and this year, due to the Rally 1 regulations coming in. New regulations, I generally like start to get more interested. Yeah. And actually thinking about it, like how close is the field? Thinking about like 3 manufacturers, of course, yeah, it's 3 manufacturers. It's not that much, but each manufacturer has won like a rally this year.
Yeah. And that's been pretty incredible to see that, you have had Ford on the top step of the podium twice with Oitanak in Sweden and Chile, and it's been shared between the others then throughout the season. It hasn't just been a dominant force of someone just going win, 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 win. And I'm thankful for that because it makes it entertaining for the fans. And, yes, we would love more manufacturers. Yes, we want more drivers to make the competition even stronger. But it has been strong this year, and no one can deny that when you look at the results and you look at the levels of competition we've had on some of the rallies, which have gone down to the wire. How will it shape up next year? I don't know, because obviously the big news in the past few weeks is that Kalle Rovanperä is going to do a partial season next year, which is something I knew was going to happen when I actually interestingly interviewed him for Backstories in 2022. He kicked off our season in 2022. So before he'd won a championship, we had this incredible chat with him, and he was pretty open and he shared quite a bit. But one of the key things I remember him saying was that, he was a young guy, and he said, he said, I'm not one of those drivers that will be around for 10 years constantly in the championship. I want to do other things with my life.
Yeah, I mean, he's good at drifting.
Yeah. He loves it. I think this is the key thing. He loves doing it. He's 23. He's achieved his dream at that point in time.
Yeah.
He's won 2 championships back to back. Why can't he go off and do what he wants to do right now?
Yeah, exactly.
There's a lot of people getting their backs up about, he should continue on and entertain me, Kalle Rovanperä. I want to see you do a full season. But I'm like, let the boy live.
Yeah.
If he wants to go off and do some rallies, do some drifting, hell, do some downhill skiing. He's 23.
Exactly. It's 23.
Let him do what he wants to do.
Yeah.
There's no written rule that you have to be in this championship year after year after year.
No,
a number of drivers have done that. And we see that a lot with, our current crop who have been there for a long time. But there's no law saying you have to do that.
No, of course
not. And I think he's a different generation, and all credit to him. I'm fully supportive of what he is doing and the bravery he has for saying, I'm still loving it. I still want to do rallies, but I want to go and do other things. Good for you, because that takes a lot of balls to be able to say that.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. Yeah, let's see what he's going to do.
Yeah.
Next year, in a part-time format. Also, there's this little birdie coming around saying that Anders Mikkelsen might be coming back into a WRC, into a Rally 1 car with Hyundai, but do we know anything? I don't know.
And if I did, I couldn't tell you. But I am really happy to see the rumors, because I just recently did a podcast with him.
Yeah, I heard that. I heard that. He was just like, I don't know. Do we have the budget? I don't know.
Yeah, but what I loved about it was, he wants to be back in Rally 1.
For sure.
But what he said was, I'd love to be back there, but if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. If I don't get a Rally 2 drive, I don't get a Rally 2 drive. But I'm still going to be happy. And he said a few years ago, WRC was the be-all and end-all for him. That's all he wanted to do. And he knew he would be miserable without a drive. But now life has changed. And that's a bit to do with age, having a baby, just different perspective on life. And he was like, whatever happens, if I get a drive, if I don't get a drive, I'll be happy. And I remember thinking as he said those words with this huge smile on his face that only Andreas Mikkelsen can do, I remember thinking, you're so in the right mindset right now. If I'm a team boss listening to this podcast, I'm like, sign him up, because he is in the absolute perfect mindset to go and do a Rally 1 drive, because he is not putting the mounting pressure on himself. His life is where he wants it to be. He's happy, but he's still powerfully fast and winning rallies and championships. I want him as part of my team. And if Cyril Abiteboul has signed him up, then it's one of the best moves he's done this season.
Yeah, absolutely. The guy has raw speed and talent.
Yeah, he does.
So why not? Why not? I mean, yeah, we're kind of sidetracked from the little.
Sorry, if you've got a list of questions, we've got off topic now, haven't we?
No worries. That's fine. Like it's I'm sure this is gonna be a great episode. Not gonna lie. I would just point out a couple of things real quick. I want to ask you, who is the easiest driver in the current WRC crop? Like thinking WRC 2.
There's a little voice there I can hear.
Yeah, who is the easiest driver in the paddock to interview? Like, who's the one who, you give him an inch and he goes by a mile?
Thierry is probably the easiest to interview, because whatever you ask him, he will really dissect your question and give you a very full answer. And he can be fun. He can be playful in interviews as well. He doesn't take himself too seriously. Only when things have gone really wrong and he's a little bit low is it hard. But even in those moments, he will still give you more than other drivers. So he's probably the easiest to interview. You're going to get a good answer from him. And Elfyn Evans, in the same respect, will give you, I kind of compare him a little bit to Latvala, because Latvala used to talk a lot, but also give you great information. And Elfyn gives you great information. You do have to push him a little bit more to get to it, but he will give you some really good analysis of stages or car setup, more than the others do, because some people can be vague not tell you I mean, they've all been trained to do that.
Yeah, exactly. They're media trained.
Yeah, they're media trained, but also they're technical director trained. So you've got Tom Fowler as technical director at Toyota. And he's watching and listening. And if they go too far,
I dare you to. He's there like, I dare you to give out any detail about your setup.
Exactly. He's like, he is watching, and I know they're all they're all the same across the service park, because they don't want to reveal too much. This is a competition at the end of the day, and but yeah, Elfyn can be playful. You need to. I mean, I've got a nice relationship with Elfyn. Obviously, he's Welsh like I am, but that doesn't really make a difference. But it's just, you need to, when you're interviewing drivers, you need to know how far you can go, push them. But also you need to be friendly and engaged with what they're saying and react to what they're saying, and not just throw question after question without listening to what they're saying. It's one of the key things I was taught when I was training, was when you're interviewing someone, you have to listen to what they're saying. It sounds like such a basic thing, but it's the most important thing, because I've met many journalists over the years who just had a list of questions, and I've stood alongside them when they fired them at drivers, and the drivers already answered the next question that they've asked, but they've missed it because they're not listening, because they're a bit worried or they're tense and they're going by their list. So I find I like to interview people like a chat. It's a conversation rather than an interview. Yeah,
at the end of the day, it is a conversation. Like, what comes after it, like, it goes with the flow.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you. Actually, we're talking about who's the easiest driver to talk to, but who's the hardest?
Who's the hardest? Well, you might know the answer to that already.
Might be Voigt.
This is always a difficult one for me, because he varies a great deal. He's one of my favorite people in the service park. But you put him in front of a camera and you try and interview him when things are difficult, and he will be difficult. He really shows his emotion in the sense that he shuts down when things are going badly. And you could say, "Oh, the sky is pink today," and he'll go, "No, it's blue." But "Oh, your tires are black." "No, they're pink." Okay. It's like that. But the one thing about him is that when he is like that, it then puts a bit of a fire in my eyes, because I just keep going and keep going and keep going with questions, and I don't give up. And then he eventually does answer properly, because he knows he's not going to get away until he does give me proper answers. Or sometimes and I fully admit this, sometimes I get a bit like, "Oh, for the love of God, this is
something.
ridiculous." And I'll just say, "Yeah, okay, yeah, good luck, thanks, bye." Because you do get to a point when you're just like, I can't be asked to try and get something out of you now. You've lost 2 minutes with something, you're in a bad mood, off you go. It's fine. But more often than not, I do push. But again, when things are going right for him and he's in a good frame of mind, he's a fantastic talker. And I love his character. I don't like it when he's rude to people, and he can be rude to people.
Okay.
That I don't like and I don't appreciate. But yeah, he can be a challenge to interview. But there's no one, I wouldn't say there's anyone in the service park or anyone I've come across, certainly in recent years, that is difficult to interview, that you kind of go, "Oh no."
Okay.
It's just, if people are going to be in a bad mood, if something has happened and you're just like, "Oh, how do I approach this? Because I have to do my job at the end of the day. I have to interview them. And sometimes you just want to say, "Oh, go and have a sit down, go and have a cup of tea."
Yeah,
but
it's understandable.
Unfortunately, you're in front of a live audience, and we need to get something out of you. And that's sometimes when I'm like, "Oh, how do I phrase it so I don't come across as a complete arse, and they don't sound as if they're, at the end of the world." Because, it is just a rally at the end of the day, but it is everything to them at the time. When things go wrong, it's the worst thing in the world.
It's understandable in
Yeah,
that regard.
totally.
Like, they're human beings. Like, of course, they will show their emotions. I think that, like, the greatest, like, one of the great things about, like, the WRC, and it's like the crowd of drivers, they are kind of like, I wouldn't say allowed, but like they are a bit more emotional. Like, they can show their emotions. Like, if you see like Formula One, it has gone so corporate that the drivers are so media trained that every answer that you get is a circle jerk. For a better way to put it. It's like, you haven't given me any good information with this answer, but you gotta have to let it slide, because you cannot really get much more than that.
Yeah, I think, but this is the beauty of our sport, in that we can grab them at a stage end when things are so raw. They've just come through a stage. It might have been fantastic. It might have been abysmal. And we're there with a microphone straight away, and they have no chance to think about being media trained or whatever they were taught in media training. And I've media trained drivers, but in that scenario, you're a human being, and whatever is in your head is going to come out of your mouth. And a lot of the time it can be swear words.
Yeah, you still have the adrenaline
anger.
pumping, of course.
Yeah, you're hitting the steering wheel. But how, and I know this sounds awful, it sounds a weird thing to say, but how good is that to see? Because you know how invested they are, you know how much it means to them, because you've just seen that reaction. And I think that's what brings people to it more, because you bond with a person more when you see their character, when you see the highs, but you also see the lows as well. It's not a polished product in rallying. It's not circuit racing. It's really raw, and you see drivers right at the bottom and you see them right at the top, and you see it all live. It's not edited. I have to apologize for swearing. And the reason I apologize for swearing is because it does happen, if people complain about the language,
Yeah.
then we would have to run at a delay and beep that language.
Yeah.
So what would you prefer? I think a postman is about to arrive at my door. No, maybe not. What would you prefer? Would you prefer to hear a beep, or would you prefer to hear the language and me then apologize for it? I
Yeah.
think the latter is definitely preferred,
Yeah.
because I would not like us to run at a delay just because enough people have complained about swearing that everything has to be beeped out, because that would just take it all away.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. I mean, I'm not touched by cussing in general, like being Italian. Like, we are a very colorful people, especially in terms of language, but that's a whole other can of worms.
Yeah. It's different, and it's different in every country, because, the
Yeah.
Norwegians, for example, they swear on radio stations, on television,
Yeah.
and it's fine. But, you come to this country and it's so bad to do that. Complaints will be made, and and there are other countries where it's not, it's frowned upon to do
Yeah,
that
it's kind
kind
of
of
funny.
thing.
Yeah,
So,
legit.
we have to be so careful, because we are a global product. It's not
Yeah.
just going out in the Nordic Scandinavian countries where they're a bit freer of tongue.
Yeah, yeah. That's yeah. Of course, it's totally fine, but everyone is entitled to their opinions. I don't care.
No, I don't care. It doesn't bother me at all to hear them swear.
Yeah.
It only bothers me if they're swearing and this is going to sound really odd, but if they're overly swearing in an aggressive manner.
Yeah, that can be a little bit
That's what
off-putting.
I don't like, because we do have younger people watching.
Yeah.
And to see someone completely let rip and use the F word consistently and stronger words than that, I sometimes think, oh, you're thinking of the age of younger people who are watching. And I don't mean like teens, I mean younger than that, who are
Younger than
potentially
that.
watching with parents. And you're like, that's too much.
Yeah,
But the
like my
normal,
daughter.
everyday, bog standard swearing that we all do for whatever reason, then that's fine. But it's when there's a real aggression behind it that, and we have had that on 2 occasions.
Yeah.
But, anyway.
I remember watching like Rally New Zealand with my daughter, and she was 4 months old. So, or wait, was it October? Yeah, pretty much 4 months old. So I was a bit like mindful in that regard that she wouldn't understand, but still.
No. But yeah, I mean, little ears around that can hear things like that, and they're seeing them on television, let's say. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a difficult, but normal swearing for me, do it. We are in the heart of the action at the stage, and that's where the swearing happens.
Yeah.
Never happens in any other scenario, but you're in the heat of the moment. So it's of absolutely no surprise. And if it didn't happen, it would be unusual. So it should happen, but I do wonder why people get agitated as to why I have to apologize for it. But a lot of people do get agitated. And I'm like, for the love of God, you need something else in your life if that's winding you up.
Yeah, for sure. So, couple of final one final question, then I might let you go. Let's see how this ends. So what does Becs Williams do off season? Have you ever gamed? Are you a gamer? Like, have you ever played video games?
Oh, yes, I have. So in my formative years, so I would say from 8 years of age onwards, I was a huge gamer. And now I'm going to really show my age, because, we're looking back to like the early years of everything, not the early years of computers. I'm not quite that old, but, basic stuff. But my brother worked in a computer shop. So he would bring home like a different computer every week. And I can't even remember them off the top of my head now, but there were so many games that I was playing, and I did become a huge gamer in my teenage years. So yes, I did play Colin McRae Rally when I was younger.
Ooh.
Yes. And I did for some time I haven't for years, I've got to be honest now, probably 3 or 4 years, I sold all of my gaming stuff. But I did have a wheel here. I would play the WRC game. I played any kind of rally game I could, circuit racing games, anything really. I do like gaming, but I sold everything just before COVID, which probably wasn't the best move because then I was like, "Ah, why did I do that?" I'm sat on my hands not doing anything in the house. Yeah, but I used to love gaming. I can understand how people are, massively into it. And I have a very good friend who is she's how old is she? I think she's 51 this year, or was she 50? Oh my god, I've never met a gamer like her. It's insane. She is just off the charts. I go into her house and it's like walking into like a kind of a LAN organized event because there's computers everywhere. She's hooked up to everything. She's just constantly online. I'm sure one day I'll go there and she won't exist anymore. She'll just be in a virtual world. Yeah, but go back to me. So yes, I did used to game quite a lot, especially in my teenage years. And then, latterly with just more kind of motorsport games, really, than anything else. So I haven't tried yet the new WRC game, but I'm itching to, but I haven't yet.
I can just tell you that it's good. It's good. It's good. The only thing that kind of like bothers me is that the stages are not one-to-one in real life. Like they're not the same itinerary as like real stages. But I
so
get
that's
it.
What you would like to see.
I get it because like then people like drivers would just do recce's in the game rather than going like on stage to do recce's.
Yeah.
But other than that, there have been issues when it comes to performance, especially on PC, but things that are going to get ironed out in next patches eventually. But it's a pretty good game.
They've done 2 patches already, haven't they?
Yeah. There have been like 2 patches out, and now we're at version 1.3.0. So yeah, it's a pretty decent game. Like also since the base was the Rally 2.0, which is already like a solid rally simulator. So of course, like people are gonna be like, I talked about it like in the previous episode about esports WRC. The handling might be a bit more on the simplistic side, of course, like because this is a game that they're trying to cater towards everybody. It's not just like sim focused title. If you want the raw sim focused, like proper rally sim experience, Richard Burns rallies right there.
Yeah, Richard Burns rallies. Still so many people use that.
Yeah,
it's quite incredible.
There is a huge community behind Richard Burns rally. Like the game is pretty much like 20 years old at this point.
Yeah, it is. I think it is 20 years old. So 21 years old.
Yeah. So
it's crazy, but great at the same time that is still so beloved. But I was fascinated to see the reaction because I worked a lot with the previous game with esports hosting and commentating on the finals.
What was called the WRC generations, like the guys at KT.
Yeah, so I worked pretty heavily with them, and it was really interesting actually because I went over to France to record a video with them about how they developed the game, and it was really interesting to see how they built everything when it came to just building the stages, the landscape, the terrain, how they integrated all of that in, the feedback they were getting from drivers that they had come work on the game, and how they processed everything into then what was the finished product. That was really fascinating, and it was a genuine pleasure to be a voice of the game at the time and be, what was I was like a training mode, I think. I can't remember what I was called. Anyway, that sounds dreadful. I've completely forgot what I was called. But it was really nice to be involved at that level, to see the work that goes into it, because it is a lot of hard work to create a game, to make it work, to come up with different ideas, like the new guys are now, coming up with all kinds of different ideas to gain interest, to garner
Yeah,
interest, and it'll get better.
of course.
It's a great. It sounds like it's already off to a fantastic start, but it's only going to get better, and that's the exciting thing behind it.
Yeah, hopefully they're gonna build upon this product. I mean, I hope that this is gonna be more of a live service kind of experience, that the game just like it's not a yearly release, so that we get more content, down the line.
Yeah.
Well, the builder mode, for example, that's insane. Like building your own rally car. I was like, when I heard it, I was like, okay, right down to Steam, pre-ordered that stuff. I'm gonna need it. So that's incredible. Like, I would like to see that feature into F1 24. I mean, they're talking about it. I think this was just a benchmark for the guys at EA and Codemasters to bring that kind of feature within EA Sports. Well, F1 21, which is gonna come out probably like June, July this year.
Yeah.
Sorry, 2024 next year. So we're getting into
we're already into next year, aren't we? It feels like we're already there.
Pretty much, yeah. So, and I would like to conclude this to end this with a couple of thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
This season was incredible, but also tragic.
Yeah,
we did lose one of the biggest faces that Rally has seen in recent memory. Well, Cam Block.
Yeah,
we lost Cam in January 2023, and in March we did lose also. Well, he wasn't really like in the limelight, but in the running community, he was like seen and garnered as one of the best drivers that has ever touched a Series Craig Breen.
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
was those two. That was insane. Like, casting my mind back to it, it was incredible. Like, seeing Rally Croatia in that kind of like, it was so somber, but at the same time, everyone was just trying to kind of like praise, homage, and cherish Craig's memories. Like,
yeah. Croatia was really difficult. First of all, though, I just wanted to say a few words on Ken, because I spent a lot of years on the championship with Ken, and at Rally Barbados in 2020, actually, where he won. I've worked with Rally Barbados for 10 years, and he came to Rally Barbados that year. He brought the whole family in 2020, and we run the event in October time. Normally it was in May, but obviously full COVID that year, but they run the event in October, and he came and Alex came, obviously, and we did this huge forum before the event where I spoke to them on a live stream for about an hour and a quarter, discussing life, rallying, what was next for Ken. And it was really apparent then that he was not stopping his rally activities, but pulling back and passing the mantle on to the younger generation, to his daughter.
To Leah,
yeah. And, all the kids were there, and, they could hear him saying all of this. And we had a brilliant time in Barbados. He won the rally, which was quite incredible, because every time he's come to Barbados, he'd done Race of Champions there a few times. It's been bad. He's been on his roof. It's never ended well. So for him to actually win the Rally Barbados was something really special. And they had a great time there. And I remember thinking, need to do his backstories podcast, because it's going to be quite incredible, because he's was such an amazing human being, where he came from in life, and how he got to where he was, and then to see the news at the start of the year that he'd gone, it was devastating, because he was a world known figure then, through all the Gymkhana stuff. Obviously we knew him on WRC from the years he spent with us, some great years, and he's such a character, such a gentleman. Have to say, you talked about who's the easiest to interview. Ken Block would win hands down every time, and Craig, because they both had this real natural ease with themselves, and they were enthusiastic, and they showed their passion. So to sit and to talk to them was amazing. So I was devastated to hear about Ken, and then to follow that up in April with Craig, who was a good friend first and foremost before, you know, any of the rally stuff comes into play. That was utterly devastating completely for our community, because rallying is a very small community, but a very large community in another way. But it's like a small traveling family. I call us a circus sometimes because we're all a bit mad, but there is a massive family vibe, and we all look out for each other. And sometimes you might not see that on the television coverage, but everyone has each other's back, which is a lovely thing. And, you know, I'd known Craig since 2009, 10, when he was quite a young whippersnapper, let's say, just coming into his own back then and working his way into the WRC. And there are no words even now, you know, 6 months after his passing. I still can't really believe he's not here, because I see his picture every day. My phone, you know, if you've got an iPhone, then you'll know that it just shows you different photos every day. Here's your featured photos, your memories, and nearly every day it's Craig. And, you know, things will pop up on memories on Facebook, or I look back through, I read some of our WhatsApp messages sometimes just to make myself feel a little bit better, because I feel like I can hear his voice when I read his messages, and he's sending me things from home where he's tried cooking and he's burnt mashed potato, and sending me pictures of him trying to grow a moustache for November, and all this kind of stuff that, you know, just like, how has this happened? How has this happened? But at the same time, you know, you've got to take what Craig said absolutely to the letter, in the fact that you need to enjoy life, and it's short. And we have had real proof of that this year with both Ken and Craig, probably the two most passionate men within the sport, with regard to the sport, gone very, very quickly. And I think that's a lesson to everyone, to make sure that they enjoy their lives and don't put things off. Do the things you want to do, wear the clothes you want to wear, say the things you want to say, and do them now, because you just don't know when the last, you know, opportunity is. You mentioned Croatia, and that was a super difficult event for everyone, because there was a point, I think, where we thought, is the event going to run? Will anyone want to go? Will anyone want to compete?
That's what I thought. Like, the first thought, it was like, this is going to get cancelled.
And it did run through my mind. I mean, it was all a bit of a blur, because I went straight from here in Wales to Ireland when Craig died, to his parents, to the family home, and I spent a couple of days there before the funeral, and then we had the funeral, and I flew from the funeral straight to Croatia, and on my flight was Danny Sordo and Mikko Hirvonen, and I remember us, you know, being there the weekend before Croatia, thinking, is the event going to run? And at the same time, you're thinking that, and you're thinking, God, Craig would be so pissed if the event didn't run because of him. But in the same breath, you're like, how can you expect these boys to go out there and do what they do, knowing that their friend has died? And it felt odd, and it was a very heavy weekend being there. And doing the first broadcast at Shakedown was probably the hardest thing I've ever done in my career. To sit and to pay tribute to Craig, and then go through Shakedown. I remember we finished the broadcast, and Seb Marshall was alongside me, and we switched the mics off at the end, and we just sat there, just in like a stunned silence, because it had taken everything to not fall apart. Because we were talking about him in the past tense already, and I was just texting with him a week before, and it was hard to comprehend. But I have never witnessed the rally community come together as strongly as that weekend. And we have been through some tough times with the championship, with deaths on event, with tragic circumstances. But that weekend, everyone pulled together so remarkably well. And it made me feel really proud to be part of it, to be part of a group of people who can conduct themselves like that in really tough circumstances. And I think Craig would have been touched with everything that happened, but also I'll tell you a little story which not a lot of people will know. We had a tribute to him. We had a photograph taken, all of us together, everyone from the service park, with the Hyundai cars, who had the Irish flag as a livery. And so we were all on the centre stage in the service park, and behind us was a picture of Craig Breen. And just moments before the picture was due to be taken, the picture of Craig disappeared from the LED screen behind us. And the petrol had gone from the generator to the LED screen. So the generator had completely broke down at just such the wrong moment. And it took about 15 minutes to restart this generator. And we were all standing there. There's about 150 of us. And our communications director was basically saying, everyone just stay here. We're sorting all of this out. And I remember thinking, God, if he's looking down on us now, all of us, waiting for him basically to pop up on the screen, how he would have laughed at that moment, that it had gone wrong at such a key time. But then his picture popped up again, and we had the picture taken, and everyone kind of left and knew that they had to just get on with the weekend and keep doing it, because that's exactly what Craig would have wanted. He would have been devastated if we'd stopped, because this is what he loved to do. And as hard as it was, and the family had given the full blessing for the event to go ahead, because they knew that he wouldn't have wanted it any other way. And it was hard for everyone involved to do it. And I don't think anyone genuinely kind of wanted to be there. They wanted to be at home under a duvet at that point in time, just being alone with their thoughts. And we got it done, and we did it, all for him. And I think I've had that feeling all season that we've done it for him. We've done the entire season for him. Everything we do, you think of Craig. It's hard not to, because he's always in your thoughts, because he was such a character, and such a great guy, and I miss him a huge amount.
We miss him. Everyone does.
Yeah.
So, Bex, that's the end of it. On a more positive or a lighter note, I would like to thank you for joining me in this episode.
You're welcome.
And Happy New Year. Happy holidays. We'll see you in 2024.
Happy holidays. I know. We'll see you in around about, is it 50 days, I think, or something, until Monte Carlo gets underway from this point. So it's not long to go at all.
Yeah.
So thank you very much.